This is Adrian and Nicole Bowens with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you for tuning in to Marriages of the Kingdom with Adrian and Nicole. WYTV7 is a nonprofit organization. We do take donations, however, so we can continue to build marriages nationally and internationally. And since this is our first broadcast, let me introduce you to my lovely wife, my queen, Nicole.
Thank you. We're excited to begin broadcasting this month. As you all know, it's the month of love, and we would like to discuss intimacy in marriage on today. And there are different types of intimacy, but we would like to focus on spiritual and physical intimacy on today. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds great to me.
Okay, Adrian. Um, Tell me, what do you feel spiritual intimacy is?
Well, spiritual intimacy is actually the foundation of marriage because it comes straight from the heart of God. Okay. So when you're dealing with the heart of God, spiritual intimacy is once you put it to the forefront, all the other types of intimacy will fall in line.
Yeah.
Okay. Spiritual intimacy comes from being in the Word of God, it comes from praying together, it comes from worshiping together,
Yeah.
it comes from spending time together with God, and it helps you both to grow.
Yeah.
And as you grow together and you grow in God, the stronger your marriage will become.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And for us, ourselves, our marriage, we find that the closer we get to God, the closer that we get to each other. It truly helps build our marriage and it draws us closer to each other. And we understand that we cannot have the marriage that God ordained for us to have if we don't spend time in the Word, if we don't pray together, if we don't study together.
So true.
Yes.
So true. It's very good. So, Nicole, how do couples find time to read together, to study together, to pray together, to worship together in this fast-paced society in which we live?
I think one of the main things you said then was fast paced. And we're in a society where we're all busy. Couples are going different ways at all times. And we have to make sure that we are intentional about our marriages. We have to make sure that we intentionally spend time together. We have to make sure that we intentionally pray together, that we intentionally study together. Because that's what continually draws us closer to each other. It has to be intentional.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So, in other words, what you're saying is that throughout our entire life, we have to be intentional
Yes.
and make things on purpose.
Yes.
Because as you were sitting there saying that, I was thinking about a lot of times we find excuses instead of being intentional.
Yeah.
We can be intentional about taking Jane to cheerleading practice. We can be intentional about taking Bobby to soccer practice.
Yes.
And a lot of times in our relationships in marriage, we do have a tendency to get caught up in work life and children life, and then we forget about each other.
Yes.
So what we have to do is continue to be intentional about dating and doing the things that you did prior to marriage, prior to kids. You still have to continue to do those things in order for your marriage to thrive and to continue to grow. So we have to be intentional about dating our spouses, telling our spouses that we love them,
Yes.
talking to them, not at them, looking him or her in the face, looking them in the eye.
Yes.
We have to be intentional about all of these things so that our marriages can continue to thrive and grow.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Yes, and the main word that you kept saying and we keep repeating is couples need to understand it has to be intentional.
Yes.
It doesn't just happen by circumstance. It has to be intentional. Your time together has to be intentional and it has to be consistent as well. You know, it can't be something we do sometimes. It has to be consistent in order for us to have great marriages. Well, let's get to physical intimacy,
Okay, let's talk about it.
which is the part most couples don't want to talk about.
True,
And
that's
it
true.
also appears to be something that is in churches to where they find it difficult to talk about it.
Okay.
There seems to be a hindrance there in churches and ministries to where it's not discussed enough.
Okay.
Because physical intimacy is biblical. And so that's what we want to discuss on today. So tell us, what is physical intimacy, Adrian?
Physical intimacy is a part that I really love.
Yeah,
Physical intimacy is touching, feeling, rubbing, being connected, almost connected at the hip, being able to hug your spouse, being able to kiss your spouse, not just at home and not just in the confines of our privacy, but also when you're in public at all times.
Yes.
Even now,
Yes.
as my wife is putting her hand on my neck,
Yes.
at all times, you have to continue to do those things. Because when you dated her or him, there were a lot of touching going on. It's almost to the point to where you could hardly keep your hands off one another, holding hands and walking through the park and walking through the mall and all of these things. So physical intimacy, you can't let it die once you get married. You still have to maintain yourself. You still have to, go to get your hair did. You have to continue to get your hair cut and lined up. You have to continue to wear the, nice clothes and present yourself. Make sure you're presentable to your spouse at all times.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Because what we want to do is keep the fire in our marriages.
Absolutely.
We have to make sure that the fire is there and that we keep that fire burning. We keep adding fuel to those flames, and touching and kissing and hugging and all of that. It adds the fire to that. And making love to your spouse, that's the ultimate fire in marriage.
Okay.
And it's a fire that should be contained in marriage because it's very powerful. Okay. And so we want to make sure that is contained in marriage, and that to make sure that is something that we're doing consistently. And for the ladies, that has to be something that we're doing consistently, even when we don't feel like it. Because there's a lot of times for us as ladies, we get to a place to where we're frustrated, and your husband, has angered you or pissed you off. So at that point, now you're like, okay, I'm going to withhold something from him. We can't do that. One of the biggest reasons as Christian couples is not biblical.
Right.
So we have to press in and do things and make love to our husbands even when we don't feel like it, because it's the will of God. Because the will of God is not about how we feel. It's about being obedient to his word. So that is very important for us. And we have to make sure that when a lot of times realizing that with couples, we found ourselves personally that a lot of times couples view good marriages and great marriages based off length of time. Yeah. The length of time that you've been married has nothing to do with whether or not it's a great marriage. True. Because you've been married 25 or 30 years does not mean it's a great marriage, and it does not represent God necessarily. I find that, talking with a lot of couples, that couples get comfortable with each other. Marriage becomes something that's just familiar to them. Okay. And so they don't work toward staying in love. They just work toward just being together and cohabitating together pretty much, like roommates. And I don't believe that that's what God ordained for marriage. He wants us to have beautiful marriages, great marriages. Yeah. In order for that to happen, we have to put the work in order to make that happen.
Very good. You said something about the comfort zone, which is what I mentioned a few minutes ago. We got to make sure we stay away from the comfort zone. Don't get too familiar, and then we start expecting things from our spouses that we should not necessarily expect. In relationship, it's still give and take. Yes. Okay. So I can't just come in because you did something yesterday or last week, then I should expect the same thing the same way. Exactly. So in other words, we have to keep the fire burning. Yes. And make it unexpected. Make the other one think a little bit, and okay, what's he gonna do today, or what's she gonna do now? That kind of thing, and that way you keep the fire burning.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. what happens a lot of times in marriages, like I said earlier, is we just really get familiar with each other, instead of focusing on that love. Um, Ourselves personally, we vowed when we got married that both of us being divorcees, we vowed that when we got married that we would put our all into our marriage.
Yeah.
We vowed that we would our marriage would represent the will of God, the word of God. And so that requires work, it requires time, it requires
Absolutely.
us really waking up every morning saying, what can I do to make my spouse's life
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
today, as opposed to what can you do for me? And so it requires work. Marriage just does not happen by circumstance.
Right.
Great marriages don't happen by
Right. Absolutely.
circumstance. It requires the work. And one of our favorite books in the Bible of course, is Song of
Song of
Solomon.
Solomon.
Song of
Song of
Solomon.
Solomon.
Song of Solomon um, is pretty much a romance novel.
Mhm.
Song of Solomon will really bless your marriage. It will bless your marriage. It will ignite fire in your marriage. And Adrian is going to read a little bit of Song of
Yeah.
Solomon for
Yeah.
us, for those that don't read this book often,
Mhm.
if you're married, really start to read this book in the Bible because it will really bless your marriage.
And not only that, you can also make it fun, make it you. Sometimes we get into the word and we think that we have to be so strict and so tight. But there are places where God even laughs at us and God has fun. So we have to also look at it that way. And even in looking at it, men, sometimes you have to go back and serenade your wife with this Song of Solomon. Just like you were when you were doing your best rap, when you were trying to get her, you can also use Song of Solomon. So watch this. This is Song of Solomon, and this is in chapter 4. And the man is speaking. He says, "You are beautiful, my darling, beautiful beyond words. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair falls in waves, like a flock of goats winding down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are as white as sheep, recently shorn and freshly washed. Your smile is flawless. Each tooth matched with its twin. Your lips. mm, Your lips are like scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is inviting. Your cheeks are like rosy pomegranates beyond your veil. Your neck is as beautiful as the Tower of David, jeweled with the shields of 1,000 heroes. Your breasts are like two fawns, twin fawns of a gazelle grazing among the lilies. Before the dawn, breezes blow and the night shadows flee. I will hurry to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. I will hurry to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. You are altogether beautiful, my darling. You are altogether beautiful in every way. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Well, I'm excited now. Yes, that blesses our heart every time we're in Song of Solomon. It will bless your marriage.
Yeah.
It will bless your marriage. And we're here today. We just want to make sure that couples are just so intentional about their marriage. Don't ever get to a place to where you just feel like, okay, we're married and you take each other for granted. You
Right.
never want to get to that
Right.
place. Because another thing we want to do, we want to show physical intimacy, spiritual intimacy to those of us who have children,
Yeah.
because we want to be outlines for them of how to have great marriages, to how to have great relationships, because they're watching us constantly.
Yeah.
And we're in a day and a time where people are just like, well, marriage is not worth it because the people that are married, they don't stay married and they don't appear to be happy.
Right.
And you can be happy in your marriage. You can be happy if you put the work into your marriage.
Right.
That's the key, is putting the work in.
Right. You must always continue to put the work in into your marriage, like I was just saying, from the beginning all the way through. Think of ways, come up with different ways to please your wife. Send her text messages throughout the day. We're
I
all
love that.
technologically savvy. Send her text messages throughout the day. Um, when you talk on the phone with her, ask her about her day. Ask her how things are going. Ask her how she's doing. Don't make it all about you. Men, especially us, don't get so self-absorbed to where you start thinking that it's all about you. Ask her how she's doing. Compliment her before she leaves the house for the day. Let her know she's your queen. Let her know how beautiful she looks. Let her know how fine she is at that moment,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So continue to talk and let these things come out so that you can have intimacy. And I tell men all the time, my wife has said it before, and I learned um, intimacy, physical intimacy, don't begin in the bedroom.
Exactly.
It doesn't begin in the bedroom. For men, now it could begin for us in the bedroom. Okay, let's go.
Yes.
No problem. But for women, most of the time, for women, you have to work up to it. They have to build up to it. And when you do that, you're doing things by sending messages through the day, giving a light kiss on the cheek or on the mouth or on the forehead, depending on what your wife likes. Do all of these things that leads up to the physicality in the bedroom.
Yes, and it really does. It really does. Like with you, my husband, I love when you send me texts throughout the day. I'm thinking of you. I love you. It ignites something in me. Like I'm excited. Like I'm ready. Like I'm ready to get home and see you and be with you. And like you said, intimacy for women, especially physical intimacy, it does not start in the bedroom.
Right.
And husbands have to really learn that the text throughout the day, the phone calls throughout the day lead up to that. I know for me personally, it leads up to making love with my husband because I'm not one to where he comes home, baby, let's do it. That doesn't work for me. Now that works for him. He's ready 24/7 all the time.
All the time.
He's always ready. But that's not the case for me. And he understands that. And so he caters to my needs when it comes to that. Now, he doesn't text or call me throughout the day for that purpose.
Right. Thank you.
But it
Thank you.
aids to that.
Right.
It helps in that. It prepares me. It puts me in the mood to want to please my husband.
Right.
And so it is very important that couples understand that, and especially husbands understand that the wife needs that.
Right.
She truly needs that. She needs the flowers, whatever her thing is. Begin to do that,
Right.
whatever that
Absolutely.
is,
Absolutely.
and listen to her because women are very verbal and they will always tell you what it is that they need.
Right.
Don't guess, don't assume. The key is really listening. That's one of my husband's skills is really listening to me when it comes to our marriage, really listening to me when it comes to making sure that he's meeting my needs, not what he thinks I want, but what he has heard me verbally
Right.
request to him that I want. So that's very important, couples, to make sure that
Yeah.
we're doing that and being attentive and communicating with each other because it's all about communication.
Absolutely. Communication is key, and make sure that you always listen to what's going on. Now, if you know your wife is not a fan of flowers, why are you going out buying a bouquet of roses? She's not a fan. Maybe she's allergic. Listen to what she says. She will always tell you what it is that she likes. She'll always tell you what it is that kind of puts her in the mood or what kind of gets her going
Yes.
when it comes to intimacy. And I want to jump back real quick because spiritual intimacy and physical intimacy, they tie in together.
Yes, they do.
When you're reading together, when you're studying the Word of God, just by us reading a few minutes ago, the Song of Solomon, it brings a closeness.
Yes.
So the closer that you become to God, and the closer that spiritual intimacy is, now the closer your spiritual and physical intimacy is with your spouse.
Yes.
Because now there's a bond there, there's a closeness there. Women have to be at a place to where they understand that they are taken care of. Not that they can't take care of themselves, we understand that, but in the marriage realm, understanding and knowing that, hey, I can lean on him when I need to. And it works both ways
Yes.
because he has to know, hey, I can lean on her as well when I do need to. So as those times come, that's when your spiritual and your physical intimacy can play a part together.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Well, I pray that everybody, we pray that everybody has
Yes.
been blessed by this broadcast on
Absolutely.
today. And we do thank you again for tuning in to Marriages of the Kingdom with Adrian and Nicole. We are with WYTV Christian Broadcasters Network. And again, like I said, I thank you for tuning in. And we ask that you tune in with us weekly as we talk about multiple topics. We'll continue this month talking about intimacy with your spouse, and we will deal with infidelity, and we'll deal with a lot of different topics that we deal with when we're counseling couples, because our goal is to continue to build marriages, and to prepare those that are not yet married for marriage. And so we ask you continue to tune in with us for our show. If you would like to donate or contact us, we are available at marriagesofthekingdom.com, which is our website.
Yes.
And then also you can reach us via email at marriagesofthekingdom@gmail.com or via phone at 864-553-8643. Again, that's 864-553-8643. Thank you so much, and we look forward to tuning in with you on next week.